Welcome to the legendary Leadership Summit 2019 with Cody, Dakota, Wooten.
I'm super excited. We've had one session so far, absolutely fantastic with Kenneth Bader. Ken was phenomenal. And now coming up to bat, we've got another amazing, phenomenal person, Melody Meyer. And Melody, she is the host of the Mission Driven Entrepreneur podcast. And she is also the creator of the ultimate bestseller formula. So if you're looking for someone to help you become a bestseller, Melody is someone you would want to be talking to. And talking about things not being perfect, Melody, we're going to be talking on your subject about an imperfect leader, and it looks like you are at an imperfect house right now that is in construction, just like myself and every other leader here, correct?
Exactly, myself included. I thought this was very apropos right here.
Awesome, Melody. Thank you for being here. I'm excited for this conversation. And your background could not be any more perfect for this subject that we're getting into, because we're going to be talking about imperfect leaders. So Melody, tell me, what is an imperfect leader?
Well, that would be a leader.
Well, like, that's me, that's you.
That's
everyone.
everyone. That's pretty much everyone. But what happens is, right, we think of leaders and we put them up on a pedestal, or they put themselves up on a pedestal. And what do we see? We see a lot of things that they're doing right. And if we really like them, we keep them there. And then as soon as they do something wrong and they show their imperfections, which they have, then we knock them down. And instead of just knowing, and a lot of people stay out of leadership because they think they have to be that, right? That they have to be perfect. And then they're afraid, and then they're going to notice that I'm a fraud and that I'm not perfect, and then they're going to knock me down. So it becomes this vicious cycle of people not wanting to step up into leadership because they're afraid of their own imperfections, or they're afraid of being exposed. And I love talking about how everyone is an expert in something, but you have to stand up and really be a leader in that expertise and decide that you're a leader and decide that you're an expert, instead of waiting for everybody else to sort of push you up on that pedestal and go, you're a leader, you're a leader. That's not how leaders are born. Leaders are born from within. And so in order to be a leader, you've got to just decide that you're going to step forward and take on that responsibility of leadership.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you on that. The challenge with that is, how do we make that decision? Because that is not an easy decision to just make, because you are facing that feeling of being a fraud. You are facing that feeling of, I need to be perfect. I need to be more than I actually am. And I'm just a human being, and I'm imperfect as a human being. So, like, how does someone actually go about making that decision?
Well, I think this is all about personal development and getting to know yourself. Okay. And when you get to see your faults and your challenges and the things that you really have issue with, okay, and your imperfections, as it were, okay, when you see them and you get to know them and you understand, you have empathy for yourself and realize that everybody's dealing with something. And this is what you're dealing with. And you get to know them, and you're constantly trying to improve and work with them. But you work with yourself. You work in cooperation with these things. You're not trying to change yourself and go against yourself, but you work with your imperfections and really embrace them. Here's the truth. If you look at the leaders that you admire the most, then you know the ones that you admire are the ones that will share with you their imperfections, or will share with you real stories of how they've had to go through adversities and challenges and things that they've done wrong in their life. These are the things that actually connect us. So to be a leader that has connection with the people around them, you have to go to that common bond, which is our failures, which are our imperfections, and it actually makes you a better leader. Another name that I had for this talk really is about authentic leadership. I just didn't think that it would be as attractive as imperfect, because people seem to identify more with being imperfect than they can get their head wrapped around the idea of being authentic. But it's the same thing. When you decide that you realize and accept and surrender to the idea that you're imperfect, and then you embrace that, then you actually are an authentic leader. And that's what I teach, really, is authentic leadership. And authentic leadership always starts with yourself, and that you're truthful with who you really are. You have to get to know yourself first. And most people are so busy, right?
Yeah.
Who am I? Is that how I look? Oh, let's change that. Oh, now that's how I look.
Yeah.
Right? It's like we're so wanting to change things from the outside and get validation from the outside. But really, leadership is an inside job. And it's not how many followers you have. It's not how many likes you have. It's how much you like yourself. How many likes do you give yourself? Okay.
Yeah,
And if
absolutely.
you don't like it, then change that. Okay. So that you can like yourself. It's personal confidence and working with yourself. That's all it is.
Definitely. This is actually really timely. I was on a podcast interview yesterday with a good friend of mine. His name's Eric Nevins. Shout out to him for the Halfway There podcast. Anyone in the Christian world, he's a fantastic person. And that's one of the things that I talked about during his show is there's a large period of time where I didn't have a strong value in myself. And those were some of the worst times of my life when I didn't have that value in myself. And I had to figure out how to create value. I had to figure out what was it that is valuable about me. And so often in the world today, people don't know what their value is. It's hidden to them. And when you don't know what that value is, it's hard to be authentic, right? Because it's basically people are telling you to be authentic and you're like, well, I think I am being authentic, right? Yeah. I think that if I take the photo in a certain way that it's going to make me look like how I see me. Or if I tell a certain story, that story is going to make me appear the way I see myself. But that's not what authenticity is really about. And I love that you're pointing that out with focusing on the imperfection.
Yeah. When we embrace those and just go, okay, I'm never going to be perfect. However, when that imperfection gets reflected back to me, then I know what I get to work on. Now I know where, a good leader knows not only strengths, like your strengths, but your weaknesses, and you work with your strengths and you work on your weaknesses. And you surround yourself with other people who can, sort of fill in those gaps. But also, you're not trying to pretend that they're not there and just kind of gloss over them or make other people around you wrong because of your weaknesses, right? It's really getting to know those weaknesses and then working with them.
Absolutely. So how does this play out in your life? Because you're talking to me about imperfections. What were the imperfections that you had to discover in your own life, and how did that play out to help you get to where you are today?
Well, that's I really don't want to talk about it. No.
Perfect answer. Check.
Yeah. What do you mean? I'm imperfect? What are you saying exactly, Cody?
Not me.
I mean, everyone else. So what's interesting, I want to share a little bit about my past, in that I was in a situation, a domestic violence situation. Okay. I was married to someone who put me in the hospital. And so everybody, once that was, I didn't tell anybody about it for years and years. But when it finally was exposed, I had a lot of people feeling sorry for me and wanting to help me and wanting to be there for me and so forth. And I didn't like that. I didn't like it because it made me feel like a victim. When inside me, I knew that my strength was really going to be from taking responsibility for my situation and then doing something about it. Now, when I say this, it's kind of a controversial topic because this is not about taking blame. Okay, taking responsibility and taking blame, two different things.
Very
and
different.
As a leader, right, you have to know the difference. Taking responsibility just is actually taking your power and deciding that you got yourself into this some way, consciously or subconsciously, and you can now make a change and you can create an intention around changing whatever it was that got you in that situation in the first place. And so that's what I did. I actually changed my life completely. I changed you talked earlier about what is your value and knowing your value. Well, I put it a different way now too, is like, what are your values?
Mm-hmm.
It's your values that actually give you value. So when someone has very high and strong values, they become even more valuable to themselves and the people around them. And that's what I did. I decided to hold boundaries. Okay, well, to make boundaries to begin with, to hold those boundaries, keep other people and myself accountable to my boundaries, which I did not have before, and decide on what my values were. That I deserved to be treated well, that I deserved to be loved, that I deserved to be loved by myself even. And when I chose those values and when I made those decisions, everything on the outside changed, including my relationships and my job. I mean, everything in my life changed. And I moved from being a victim to really being a leader or a victor in my own life, because I took that responsibility and could make the changes because I took that power. So, I don't often, go into my stories about that so much because I don't like the idea of somebody was doing something to me, because that's like that's not even an important part of the story. It's really about there's always some kind of challenge happening. And when we take responsibility for where we're at in that challenge and go, wow, here's where I am. And now I can do something about changing where I am and doing something about it. And that's how I actually got into martial arts. Like I say, totally changed my life. I'm a
just 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I love martial arts. I'm a
Do
huge
you?
yeah, I've been practicing martial arts for over 20 years now.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that,
Yes,
Cody.
I'm a huge martial arts enthusiast.
Are you a black belt?
I am a black belt.
In
Yes.
what? In what
It's
art?
the style that I'm a black belt in is called Taekwondo Karate Do. But basically it's a hybrid martial art with karate, taekwondo, little bit of American boxing, hapkido, tang sudo, all those fun things. But
Wow.
yeah, so
Good for
and
you. Do you
then
still train?
I do still train, but not specifically with that style anymore.
Okay.
Sadly, actually, just a month or two ago, the founder of the style just passed away. And
Wow.
I did a whole video about it. If you want to learn about him, it's
Yeah.
out there in the World Wide Web, on all my social media, and you can learn about the impact that he had on me and the style he created has had on me.
Wow.
The big thing I'm working on doing in martial arts right now is actually Tai Chi, though.
Oh,
So
great.
yeah. So and what about you? Tell me about your martial arts journey.
Well, I'm also in Korean martial arts. I have a 6th degree black belt in Hapkido and a 1st degree in Taekwondo.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's
So,
phenomenal.
and I never intended on being in martial arts and certainly not getting a black belt. But because my values had shifted to not only taking care of myself, but, also not just from a safety point of view, but also for fitness and for confidence and all of those kinds of things. I just, took another step and took another step until what? I'm testing for a belt? How'd that happen?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you make this transition into martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
Keep going on that story for me.
Well, I didn't start in martial arts initially. What I started in was in fitness kickboxing, just
Okay.
because I thought that would be fun for
It's
fitness.
still a martial art. It's just not like the down deep in self-defense type of martial art. It's more like a fitness.
I thought it was that, like, the intention was about fitness, and I thought that martial arts was about fighting.
Mm-hmm.
So I was not into fighting.
No.
I was into, let's all like get along and love each other. So
Yeah.
I didn't want to do anything that would, put me in situations where I'd be fighting somebody and have an opponent. I was really done with those days.
Yeah, where you're like, I challenge you to a battle. Ah!
But that's because I had the movie idea of what martial arts is, right?
Absolutely.
Not how martial arts actually is. And actually, I was talking to a master at one point and saying my inner conflict about martial arts and about getting into it. I said, I just don't believe in fighting. And he said, well, martial arts is not about fighting. Martial arts is about stopping the fight. And since then, I've really gone on to realize that martial arts for me was really about stopping the fight inside. But that's where the struggle really is. It's not, we play it outside, but this is really, like I say again, an inside job where the fight is inside, and that is the fight that we get to stop and work with that energy and transmute it into something that's beneficial to yourself and to others around you.
Absolutely. And that plays out in so many different ways, especially in the world of business, because how often do employees come to work, they're not doing the best job they could be doing, not because of anything that has to do with work, but what's going on at home, or what's going on with their family, or what's going on with their kids, or the car accident they got into recently and now they're worried about bills. And like that's so common. And not only that, but you have people that are battling demons that have faced them for years and years and years, and they either don't know how to overcome it, or they don't want to accept that it causes challenges in their life, and it creates tons of turmoil.
Yeah. Well, I went and got my master's in psychology for this very reason, because I was fascinated with this idea of that people tend to project what, like, the struggle and the challenges and the pain that they have inside. They tend to project that onto other people and then make it their fault. And like that whole transfer and denial is so prevalent, and it's so natural that I wanted to understand that more, because I was seeing that in my own life, making other people wrong, when really it was, there were things that I needed to work on myself, instead of focusing on how everybody else needed to, change. That maybe, I don't know, maybe I could change myself instead. And take all that same energy and just turn it around. And but I love, like, that's always work. Okay, that's always the work, is anything that gets me upset, anything that sends me into a tizzy. It's like, okay, what is it that I'm expecting from somebody else, and how is it that it's really their fault? And how can I, take responsibility and move from that situation or move with that situation. As you know, Hapkido is really about working with the energy that's happening, not just trying to like hard block it and stop it, but to, oh, okay, you want to throw a punch at me? Fine, let's keep the punch going, you know?
Exactly.
And into my Dexter deck, scenario right here. But you just keep that energy moving, right? Instead of trying to just stop it, like working with what's happening. And I found that to be very beneficial for myself, especially when it comes to leadership, is working with what's happening and accepting what's happening. The work of Byron Katie, I'm not sure if you know who she is, but loving what is, huge part of being a leader. And I know a lot of people think of that as being very passive, or that, here's the other one that I love. If I love what is and I accept what's happening, then I won't change it. I won't have any motivation to change it. So they got to get all worked up and hate what's happening and like be against it and like, when really it's that energy, it can, it's good to stand for something, for sure. But working with the energy, it gives you much more momentum and can actually help you change things a lot faster than trying to just stop it, and just be like hard against something.
Absolutely. And I'm just thinking of this from a martial arts point of view right now. So often when people start in martial arts, they think like it's very, they do very harsh movements. It's right? And they see other people come at them and they think they have to tense up. It's and just like take it. And what they don't realize is doing that damages them. Like they take on more energy from the impact. And so it actually hurts them a lot more than it needs to. And it works the same way with how we are inside. If you just try and stand tough against it and just, you're not looking to resolve it, right? If I just stand here really tense and someone is pounding on me and I don't get them to stop pounding on me, they're going to beat me to a pulp, right? And internally, it happens the exact same way. If we just stand firm and we're like, I can tough it out, it continues to beat up on you, just like a big 800-pound gorilla just continuing to beat up on you.
Well, you know what? That makes, this kind of gone around in a nice circle towards the idea of imperfection. What people do when they see things that are wrong with themselves, they either project it onto somebody else and make them wrong, or they beat themselves up about it, which is the same thing, that same fight you're talking about, right? We're like, I hate this about myself. I mean, I work with a lot of leaders who, they might be very proficient in one area, but there'll be another area that they're so hard on themselves about. They're just beating themselves up, having that internal struggle to the point where it's diminishing their self-esteem. It's actually wearing on their energy and pulling them down instead of really lifting them up. And as leaders, we have enough challenges in our path that we don't need to be our own challenge as well.
Exactly.
We could be our comrade instead, work with ourselves instead of against.
Definitely. And the biggest thing with leaders is you're a leader to solve the bigger challenges that are happening in your business, in your organization, wherever else you're a leader at. And if you are so far down beating yourself up and allowing yourself to get beat up, how do you have the ability to actually tackle the biggest challenges that are happening? You can't.
Well, I love working with mission-driven entrepreneurs. And the reason why is because I believe that if you're in touch with your mission and like that purpose, and it's so big that it helps direct some of that energy, okay? because it really, if you see your imperfections, you could all be like working on yourself all the time. Like, and I believe in personal development, but it can't all be about you, right? You have to, and actually, if you are working towards something that is bigger than you and that might never even get solved in your lifetime, that's a problem. That's a challenge worth your time and your energy. Okay? Not constantly trying to like just fix you and make yourself work better and look better and all those kinds of things. It's like, that's important as a foundation, but we've got to use that foundation to, want something bigger and have a mission. And those people that are in touch, we all have a mission, by the way. We're all given a mission, just we're not that intentional with it. So, but you can decide what your mission is. And a lot of times that's where my work with people starts, is like, I don't know my purpose. So we create a lot of drama in our life. So we get so busy that we don't have a chance to even take the time to figure out what is our bigger purpose or our mission. And what would happen if we took that time and then just decided what that was. We can always change it later, right? But work towards this thing. And I'll tell you, a lot of the other stuff falls away. All those other like little challenges or little things you don't like about yourself or whatever, it's like, I love the story of Mother Teresa. Someone goes to her in India and says, I'm having all of these internal struggles and I'm just not sure what to do. And I've got these opportunities and I can't make all these choices. And Mother Teresa, will you help me? She was, certainly. And she, gave this person a bucket and said, go clean the latrine. Like, what? Like, no, you don't seem to understand who I am. I've got very big, global decisions to make. It was like, go be of service right now and everything will fall into place. And I love that story because sometimes I do that, right? I get so like amped up about wanting to make the right decision, wanting to do the right thing. And everything's hinging on this and I got it right. Instead of just being like, I'm going in this direction. This is where I've decided or chosen to go for now. And let some of those littler things like just fall away and just be a leader on this mission. And so I would love to, challenge anyone who's listening to this today is, have you decided what your mission is or your purpose is? No one's going to tell you, by the way. It's not going to come to you in a fortune cookie.
If only it were that easy.
If only, right? I think I should do that. That's a good idea. Do like purpose fortune cookies. What do you think, Cody?
Your mission for Melody. Cookies for your purpose.
Oh my gosh. But really, it doesn't come any magical way. It comes from actually moving forward, working, being a leader, living according to your values. So if you don't have those, that's the first step. Deciding what your values are and then building a life based on those and choosing that mission and then just going for it. It's an adventure.
Definitely. And there are so many different places we could end up going with this. And
I know, right?
I'll try and tackle as many as I'm able to. One of the things that I really enjoyed was when most people look into the future, they're trying to create a perfect path to get to that future.
Oh, to get to a perfect future.
Exactly. And what everything we're talking about right now is imperfection. And when you're so caught up on creating that perfect future and taking the perfect path to that perfect future, which perfection doesn't exist anyways, you can't take a step forward because the path isn't there to accomplish it.
Right.
You have to accept the imperfection before you can even have a taste of the actual future. Knowing that, okay, I'm going to start going on this path, It's not going to be perfect, but if I move this direction, if I slip a little bit here and this path actually cuts off right there, so I got to backtrack a little bit and go a little bit different, at least I'm moving towards it. When you're so caught up in the perfection, you can't even move forward.
Well, and that's why you need to you need to really be doing something that you're passionate about, because there's going to be so many obstacles that come up and so many challenges regardless, right? That path is not perfect. So without something, as, your direction that you're really passionate about, would be much easier to kind of lose some heart around that, and lose some energy, because that's why the pursuit of money is very difficult. Whenever anybody that I work with has that as their goal, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to make them wrong for that. I understand we need to take care of our needs, but what else? What is it that you think the money is going to give you? What kind of lifestyle do you want? How could we create that now as we're going towards this mission? What is something that you would like to see happen in the world that you could actually be a part of creating? And when we get in those deeper conversations, people's vulnerability really comes up, which is part of the reason why they've never wanted to step out and do those things, because it's scary. It's scary to say, this is what I really want, and then to take a stand for that and step into it. I get it. We all have these dreams, but if we don't vocalize them, and if we don't step forward in them, and if we're not a leader in that passion that we've been given, okay, we've been given that passion. It's our responsibility to do something with it. And when we identify what that is, then wow, all the challenges, it won't be as difficult. Won't be perfect, but it won't be as difficult when you have a mission that's worth it, that is so worth it for you.
Absolutely. And what I love in this is you're defining the mission as something that has to be valuable within you, not something that makes you valuable, because that's what money is. And that's how most people see money is, if I get the money, I become valuable. The money makes me valuable. And in the long term, that doesn't motivate you, because when you don't have the money, you feel worthless. You feel worthless, so you're not going to be able to do the work you need to do to get the money. And it's a vicious circle that repeats itself over and over and over again. And I've been in that vicious circle before. I've done that.
Exactly.
So I 100% understand it. It hurts. It sucks, because when you are seeking the value outside of yourself, nothing is ever enough.
Right.
But when you have that mission that inherently gives you a value, it's not that achieving it gives you the value. It's that just pursuing it gives you value. It allows you to overcome those imperfections.
Yes. So what is your message? See, your message is really what directs your mission. Okay, when you know what your message is, then you can decide, well, then this is where I'm going to go with this message. This is the direction. This is the mission. And this is where people get stuck. So they get stuck on what is their message. And what they don't realize is just back to what you exactly said, you are the message. So it's not something that's going to be given to you that you take with you to present on the mission. It's you. You're the message. So as the messenger and as the message, is what message are you giving right now? And is that what the message? So if your life were to end right now, what is the message that would be said about you? What is your legacy? Because you already have one. What is it? And was that intentional? And is that okay with you? And I'm sure it's fine, whatever it is, because it always is. And do you want it to be more? Do you want to have a bigger impact? Do you want to make a bigger difference? then that's where your intention comes in, and that's where your message needs to get bigger. That's where you need to become bigger. That's part of being that leader and going, okay, this is my message. This is who I am. This is my mission. And now we're going for it. I'm creating a plan and I'm taking those steps towards it. That takes so much guts, and people, I get why a lot of people don't do that. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of internal, and it's a little bit scary. But really, the alternative is much scarier.
I definitely agree with you there.
Right?
But
right?
It really is so difficult to raise your hand outside of the masses and say, I am going to stand for something else. And knowing that the eyes of the masses are upon you, and knowing that once you make that claim, they're going to start holding you accountable, and they're going to be looking for the times where you're not living up to that. Yeah. And if you are thinking of yourself as perfect, that's such a huge weight, because you know you're not perfect. Exactly.
And why would you even take step one on that journey? And most people won't. It's like, it's not going to matter. How can I make a difference when I'm imperfect? I think that, but again, going back to the first point, is embracing our imperfections and then telling those stories. Okay, so you said in the introduction, I help people write books. The reason why is because I do believe, and I help them write their business book to help their business. But the thing that always surprises these authors is that I make them tell their story. Because your story with your imperfections, and believe me, everybody's story is full of imperfections.
Yeah.
It's your strength. That is your strength. It is the thing that actually makes you more easy to connect with, that makes you more lovable, makes you more human, more authentic. And people who identify with those imperfections will be attracted to you, and those who are not will not be. And that's awesome when you know who your tribe is and who your tribe is not, who your market is, who your market is not. You can't make everybody happy, and you don't want to. That doesn't even make a good business plan, right? You want to niche, find your tribe, find your ideal customers, and then serve them like crazy. And when you know who they are, because you've attracted them with your story, it's the best marketing plan ever to attract people rather than going out and try and find them one by one. Hi, do you want to buy this? Do you want to buy this? No. You be your message. You be your story, as imperfect as it is. And then you attract your ideal customer, and they just go, whatever you're selling is fine. Here's my credit card. I know that sounds simplistic.
Take my money.
No, but really, have you ever met someone like that, Cody, where you're like, wow, who are you? What do you do? I don't care. I want to do whatever you're doing. I just want to be around you, because you identify with them, right? You want to be that kind of leader too. We all do, where we almost magically attract our tribe. But it is our story that actually does that. It's who we're being, and all we are is just a big, mixture of our stories. All our stories put together. There we are. Okay. And as we share those with the people around us, however we do it, it could be in a talk, it could be, in speaking gigs that we get, it could be in a book, it could be in a course we teach. Whatever we found, or whatever vehicle we're using to get our message out there, then when we sprinkle that with and let people know who we are, we more effortlessly attract who needs us and who we can serve.
Definitely, which is so needed in the world, because so many people are looking for someone to be a leader in their life, to stand up and say, we're going in this direction, come with us. It's so needed. Now, as the leader, you need to share your story, but we have so many stories that happen in our lives. I mean, I could talk about a story about what happened on the road yesterday, which was actually pretty uneventful yesterday, luckily. But like, that's not going to further the message I'm trying to put out. So how does someone go about knowing what stories they should be sharing?
That is such a good question, Cody, because that is probably the biggest question that my, the people that I work with, my authors, are curious about. It's like, when you've lived long enough, you got like a ton of stories, right?
Well, and sometimes people aren't that old and they've lived far more than they should have.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's true. Well, there's a few different kinds of stories that I find to be very, very beneficial. And I'll name a few of them. So one of them is your why story. Why do you do what you do? Now, remember, I'm doing them in the context of increasing your business and building a strong business. So if you want to build a business, people are curious, even if they're not overt with the question, they're curious as to why you're in this business. And that story of why is a great story usually. Okay, and if there's the surface one, there's the surface story, and then there's the story behind that story that's even better. And just depending how brave you want to be, that story can really lead to that deeper story. I'm going to give you an example of one of my authors. So I have an author who has written a book about dementia, thriving through dementia. And she's a caregiver, and she's been a caregiver for many, many years. And she has found a way of working with people with dementia that really helps the caregiver not burn out, and also really helps the person, with dementia. And so she wanted to write a book about these techniques that she discovered and really created so that she could share them with as many people as possible. Great mission, right? And it's a great why. And so she could tell that story and go, yes, I want to help people, that's my why. Well, there's a story behind that story, okay? And that is that she actually, her mom had a stroke, and when she was away on vacation, and she came back and her mom didn't know who she was. And this was, a mom that she talked to every day, who was always there for her, always had, the right answers for everything. And then suddenly her mom didn't even know who she was. And it was so heartbreaking for her. And she had to, learn about caregiving. She had to find out what, her mom needed and how to deal with this, not only as a caregiver, but as the daughter who was also going through the grief of losing her mom, even though her mom was still sitting in front of her. And when she tells that story about coming into the hospital room and going to her mom and saying, "Mom," and her mom not recognizing her and saying, "Who are you?" It's so devastating. Like, even as you're reading it, and I didn't have that experience, but I could feel that experience. And now I feel much closer to this author, who's now going to be giving and sharing some techniques with me. But now I understand her why, like why it was so important for her to find ways to connect with her person, with her mom, with this person who happened to be her mom, and be able to come up with some techniques where she could communicate and still have a new relationship with her. Okay. Now I believe what she says. I believe that she has, my best interests at heart as the reader of these techniques. And I'm all in. Like, I'm all in. Whereas the other story, as nice as it is, she wants to help the world and help everyone, with some techniques, is like, that's nice. And you wanted my $20 for your book too, I bet. We make up, whenever there's a void of a story, we make up the story. So understand your customers are doing the same thing. They're deciding. That's why selling is so much easier when people know your story and your why story, because they know you have a bigger mission than just to get money out of them, that you're actually really committed to their transformation, whatever whatever it is that your bigger picture is. So that's what I'm talking about. Is like, if you share your why story, it can make a really good connection. The other one is your passion story. These are really the top two. Your passion story is really the story about what you're so passionate about and why. Why you are who you are, essentially, is the kind of story that you want to share. So you're more than just an expert or an author. You have a passion that came from somewhere. And so it doesn't have to be something terrible that happened to you that becomes your why or your passion. It could just be you have a passion that is so important to you, and you explain why you're passionate about it, and it gives a whole new meaning. So I'll give you another example. So because like I teach self-defense and I teach about self-care, and I do self-care on many different levels. So I help people with their physical body. So that means their fitness and their nutrition and things like that. And then their self-care emotionally, and their self-care intellectually, okay, and spiritually. And these are things that I like to work with my clients on all simultaneously, and making sure that we hit each of those. Well, why am I passionate about that? Well, as I got to know myself, I realized that it was very difficult for me to just stay on one little thing, like one small piece of it, and ignore all the rest. It was driving me crazy in the business world to see people who are making tons of money but ignoring their physical bodies. Okay, that was driving me crazy, and they'd be getting sick and they couldn't serve their customers, or they'd be making so much money but they didn't have the health, okay, or they weren't keeping up intellectually, or they were diminishing spiritually. There was just no thought about these other areas. They were just so focused on their business. I thought, no way am I going to perpetuate that scenario. Okay, I want to create a different model that takes care of all these other areas. So I became passionate about like all of it, and I call it feed yourself pies, physically, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually. You've got to feed yourself pies in order to have like the lifestyle. And my tribe does have it all. We want it all. Okay. We want the whole thing. We want the successful business, but we want the healthy body. We want the family and friends. We want a connection to the universe and to nature. So we've got to be working all these things into our lifestyle to make sure that happens. So now people go, so when I tell them that and explain why I'm so passionate about these different things, they forgive me that one day we can be talking about, what book they have. And the next moment we're talking about, did they get out for a walk today? Have they, put their face in the sun? You know what I'm saying? So they understand, oh, she's not like schizophrenic. She actually cares about me as an entire being, as a whole person. And so it makes more sense. And people are more on board when they know these passion stories or these why stories, so that they can, they just buy in better, and they become, it makes a bigger difference in their life, which is what we want.
Absolutely. And I mean, that is so necessary for people to understand who you are, right? Mm-hmm. Especially as a business owner, you need people to know, like, and trust you.
Yes.
And in order for them to do that, they got to know who you are, what makes you you. Yeah. And these stories are so important. They've definitely played a huge part in my life. Just like thinking in my life, I've got, like one of the stories is that, growing up, I looked out into the world and I saw different people in leadership positions who were doing terrible things in those leadership positions. And I saw a generation rising up. seeing that as leadership and not knowing what leadership is supposed to be. And I didn't want them to not have examples of what legendary leadership looks like.
Aw.
You know, so that's why I'm doing this summit. That's why I have my podcast and TV show.
Aw.
That's why I coach leaders, is because I want people to see what leaders are supposed to be like in the world. But then you can also tie it back even further in my story, right?
Good. What's the story behind the story?
Yeah, I was raised by 3 women because my father was discovered to be married to another woman at the same time as my mother. And he made an active decision not to be a part of my life.
Okay.
And so I grew up without that father in my life. It started from day one, where I didn't have that person who should have been there for me ever be a part of my life by choice. He was allowed to be a part of my life, and he chose not to be. That is the reason behind the reason. Yeah. But then I also have my story about when I was engaged, and the person I was engaged to left me for the person that I thought was my best friend. And all the impact that had after that, emotionally, turmoily, and how it was hard to do anything after that. And now I can tie that into everything I do, recognizing that it's not just, what you do as a leader at work, but what happens at home can also impact that and prevent you from leading at the capacity that you have the ability to lead to. All those different stories tie into why I talk about the things I do, why I look at the world the way I look at it. That's how I can have a conversation with you who helps people write books one day, and I can have a conversation with someone who's leading a shoe company another day and tie principles together with each other. It's because that's how I see the world.
Yeah, I know. See, and now I feel so much more close to you, Cody, and everybody that's listening. I'm sure getting a peek inside of your head and inside of your heart, it makes us feel more connected. And when we're more connected and more united, we get to help each other and each other's missions and lift each other higher. All it does, when we share these stories, as painful as they are, they help lift us and build a really strong community. So thank you so much for sharing that with me and with everyone. That's amazing.
Absolutely. Well, thank you.
Thank
you. I appreciate that.
And that is the beauty of a book, because you can get into those stories. It's hard to share those. I mean, you can't have and share those stories that you just shared with us in every conversation that you have with someone,
exactly.
Right?
And I super shortened them down. That
Right?
was a minute, 2 minutes. And I could talk about those for days, literally days, right?
Well, let's get to getting your book done.
Oh, definitely.
But seriously, because this isn't something you do, people say, their elevator pitch and stuff is like gag, that does not, connect people. I'm sorry. It's your little, oh, this is who I am in 30 seconds. Okay, I guess that's an intro maybe, but how do you know if you really want to work with someone, if you're really part of the same tribe? It's when you get a chance to share those stories. So hopefully, when I teach, my clients around about giving a strong intro, that first introduction and that, elevator pitch, as it were, it's got to be intriguing enough so that it will get to the next level where you can start sharing stories and listening to their stories. Big part of being a leader is not just sharing your story, broadcasting that, but having that invitation where you're so open and authentic with your story that now they feel like they can share their story.
Absolutely.
And that's what builds community, is that inner weaving of each person's story, and that's an integral part of the group.
Definitely. And in today's world, sadly, there's so much focus on trying to be perfect, right? People don't feel like they have permission to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And so when you, as the leader, stand forward and say, no, you're allowed to be vulnerable. You're allowed to have your own story. You're allowed to be heard. People are dying for that, literally dying, like because psychologically it's causing depression and anxiety, and because they're not able to talk about it, it just gets worse. So they are literally dying. It's not just they're dying to hear, no, they're physically dying because no one is listening to them. And if you can be that leader who will be there and allow them to be vulnerable, allow them to be human, you can create a connection with them that they will do anything in order to maintain.
Yes. And then they can turn around and be leaders in their life and in their families. Okay. Your story is a very familiar story, where a parent leaves and is out of the picture from one decision or another, sadly. Okay. But who is the leader then? And how do you learn about leadership? What I really love about your story, Cody, is that you did not then take a passive role. You didn't go, well, I can't help it because I didn't have a dad, or I didn't, right? You know what I mean? It's like you decided you would fill the void and you would be the leader, and that you would develop the leadership skills that you did not learn from a father figure. You would take it from the leadership figures that you were given and that you had the fortune, to have in your life, and learn from them, because even if they were terrible leaders, you learn leadership, right?
And I've got plenty of stories about that as well, where they were in a leadership position and they did something like for instance, first corporate job I get there, I have basically no training. Their training was here's a list of accounts. We don't even have numbers for them. Start dialing. And it's what? I'm not even in the system yet. Where do I get numbers from? Google search? Literally, that was my training. Less than a month there, we have an all hands meeting, right? And our CFO gets on stage to talk about the state of the business. And he literally tells everybody in our company how our team gives him nightmares.
Nice.
And it's not even we were terrible people doing terrible things, right? It was just the state of where our team happened to be, because we were underdeveloped, because we were a bunch of people that have experience there. It was way more than the three of us could handle. And I had just gotten to the team, so it's not I had any experience to bring to it. And he said that on stage, and I'm thinking holy crap. That's so painful to hear.
Awesome.
Thanks.
That's
Thanks
nice,
for that.
awesome leadership lesson. Thank you.
Exactly. So you like to focus on books and getting people published. Why is it that you think that books are such a great avenue for people versus the plethora of other things that are out there?
Well, if you could convince me that there was a better way of getting not only your story out, but you to teach something of value, okay? If you could actually show me another way that is better, I really want to know, because that's what I work with on my clients, is giving them the best tools available to be able to get their message out there. So it really has been the best, because here's all the things you can do with a book. All right. So first of all, you can use it. You've heard the book is the new business card idea. Well, yes, you could give somebody your book and they're going to get much more out of it than if you gave them your business card. Have you ever thrown a business card away? Yes. Okay.
I think I've dropped some by accident. Actually,
yes.
Really funny story. I've got a huge stack of business cards right next to me. I try not to, but most people do.
But let me tell you, people don't throw books away. They
That's
just
true.
don't. Even if they never crack the cover, that book is going to be sitting there staring at them until they, move or die. Right. So it is much better than a brochure or a business card, because you can go into the details and really share who you are, what your values are, so they can see and get to know, like, and trust you. Have you ever read a book where you felt like you knew the author? Right?
Oh, yeah.
You felt like you knew where they were coming from and you knew much more about them. Well, that's how people will feel after they've read your book. After they've read your story, they're going to go, oh, I know this guy, I get him. And that's really, really valuable. And it's very difficult to do that. You see a lot of people doing webinars right now. Why do they do 1.5 hour long webinars? Well, the first half hour is what? It's their story usually, because you're trying to make a connection and get people to value the information that you're going to be sharing with them. You want them to go, oh, okay, I get why, or I get how this person is where they are, so now I will listen to the lesson. Nobody wants lessons or wants to listen to or doesn't trust lessons from someone that they don't know or they don't understand the why. So that's what a book really does. Because I believe in providing value. So this isn't a story, and I don't help people tell their life story or do a fiction story unless it's in the form of like a parable or whatever, because really my specialty is in helping it a reason for business, right? So if you're wanting to write a book that's good for business and for your business, but is also going to help another person, you have to teach something. There's got to be some value in the book as well. And so that's what I love about it. You can share your story, make that connection, but you're also creating a lot of value, and you're teaching the person something, actually making a change, maybe shifting their point of view. When I gave the example of one of my authors who wrote the book Thriving Through Dementia, I mean, her mission is to change the conversation about what dementia means, that people with dementia will be treated differently, universally, okay? And that's a huge, huge mission where people, change how they view something. Wow. So when you've got a mission that's that big and that strong, then your book is a stepping stone for that mission. The book also is a great way to get a lot of free PR and get your name out there and really help you build your brand. That's why it's important to, be authentic and then write a book that is actually from you and part of your brand. I mean, we do that all kinds of ways, from your content, of course, but the voice that you write in, which should be just how you speak. People think they got to do something special when they're writing. No. We want it to sound like you, as if you could just read it and it would sound like you. And that those things are with your brand, consistent with your brand, as well as even the look of it. The colors that you use on the cover, and even the font and the title, and everything is pointing to who you are and what your brand is, so that you can really attract your tribe and give value to your customer. So you're going to get more business from this book. You're going to attract your tribe and really make a difference and help them transform whatever problem you're solving. That's the big thing I do with my authors, is get them to identify the problem that their customer is having the most, and then give them the solution or solutions to fix that problem. And now your book has value. Now you've told your story. Now you've built that connection, built community. It's just a win-win-win.
Absolutely. And you can tell me if I'm wrong in this, but part of what I'm understanding of the value of a book versus the many other mediums is the fact that you have complete control over the length, how to tell it, how long the stories get to be, where a lot of other platforms, people are expecting some sort of specific time limit to be within, such as I have a podcast, but most people don't listen to podcasts that are 2 hours long.
Right.
And so how do you fit all the stories that are impactful
Right.
into a short period of time, and it's not really possible. And then can you keep someone around throughout the entirety of your ability to tell that story? Versus a book, people have an expectation that it's going to be more in depth, that it's going to be longer, that they're going to get more out of it than just, a 30-minute talk.
Well, and they can take their time with it, right? And they can take it as they are ready for it. And guess what? They take it to bed with them. Just saying, there's no other medium that does that, probably.
It's very few and far between.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So really the benefits are of a book. And then like I have an event coming up next week, which I'm happy to invite people on this call to, if they would like to come. I can give them a free link to it. But that would be a special little bonus we didn't tell anybody about. But here's the thing that I do in the live event is we take your content. It could be a book. So like my new authors are all going to be there, and we're going to take their book. But other people come too that don't have a book done, but maybe they have a talk, or they have an idea, they have a message, maybe they have a blog, maybe they just have a tagline for their business, or they need one. Whatever they've got, we take and we create a suite of products around that one message. So, and the beauty of a book, it's so simple. When you've already written it, you can take that and you can make videos from it. You can do a whole series. You can make blog posts from it. You can do social media memes from it. I mean, you've got all your content essentially done. Okay, people are always trying to create content all the time. But what would happen is if you already had like more than a year of content in your book, that now you just have to, give it to your team if you've got one, or just take it yourself and divvy it up and use it in different forms. Because like you said, not only do not everybody listen to a 2-hour podcast, but there are a lot of people who don't even listen to a podcast, right? But they might like to read, or they like following blogs, or all they are is on social media, or they like to get your email newsletter. But you can literally take your book and repackage that content into a plethora of other products.
Absolutely. So my next question for you is, how does someone go from writing the book to getting the book published?
Okay, so I get asked that a lot because people are worried about publish. They're worried of like going to all the work of writing a book and then it just sitting there, like a manuscript just sitting on their desk, like great, all that work and it's not going to go anywhere. It is so easy. Like even in the last 3 years, the publishing world has completely transformed. And self-publishing is not what it used to be. It used to be looked down upon like, oh, it was self-published. But now nobody can tell. If you do it professionally and if you do it right, no one can tell that your book has been self-published, all right? But you can self-publish a book very easily. It doesn't mean you can't get published then by other big publishers, because that's always open to you. But here's the little secret. You're not going to make money with your book by selling it. Okay, that's not the intention of writing a business book specifically. It's to increase your business. Okay, so if a book is $20, you got to sell a lot of books. Because you get a small tiny percentage of that, right? You don't make $20 from a $20 book. Okay? So you have to find another way, and that's what I teach, is how you actually make money with a book without it coming from your, the sales of the book. That's nice. That's like gravy. Okay. But that there's other ways to make money with the book. But meanwhile, getting it published, you have to get it published in order to get it out there to as many people as possible. So Amazon is set up and it's so user-friendly. And I do that like in my course. It's like one whole segment where we just learn how that all works, so you can learn to do it yourself. So you never have to, like, I actually got into this whole world because I got screwed over by a publisher. I gave a publisher over $20,000 to publish my book. And I had my first order, it was going out to 2,000 people. There was like almost 2,000 people who bought my book. All right. And it was going out and I was so excited. And I got my box of books delivered and I open it up and like my book, I open it up and it was the wrong manuscript.
Oh no.
Yeah. And everybody got the wrong manuscript. Now it was a previous version of my book, but the publisher had just put up the wrong manuscript to get printed. And they took no responsibility for it at all.
Oh.
Okay. And I thought, I cannot spend that money again for my next book because I plan on writing lots and lots of books. It's like, how can I got to learn this. I had delegated that thinking that, publishing is hard and publishing, there's so much to it, so many moving parts. I can't do that. I'll just throw money at that problem. I threw a lot of money at it, thinking it would solve it, and it didn't. And so that's why I learned all about publishing, and it's very easy. It's very straightforward. And I literally it's through Amazon. You just put your manuscript up there and push a button. I mean, that's what publishing looks like, essentially. Publish. I mean, there's a lot of work that leads up to it. You got to actually write a book and everything.
Yeah, because writing a book, it still takes time.
Oh,
it doesn't
for sure.
have to be the biggest challenge in the world, but it does still take time.
But it's not the publishing that's the hard part. And I thought that was the hard part. So publishing is very simple, very straightforward. You still have to market it. Even my friends who have been published by big publishing houses, doesn't mean those publishing houses are doing any marketing for them either. Okay, so really you need to learn how to market and get your book written. You got to get it done. Then you push a button for publish, and then you market your book. That's actually the biggest part of the work is that marketing piece.
Definitely. And within the marketing piece, if you had to pick like one or two of the most important things with marketing for the book to actually get your message out there for people to actually hear your story, what would you say those things might be?
Okay. I love giving books away for free. Okay. I know that's very unpopular with people who want to make money with their book. I've even had people say, well, my book, you suggested, $14.99 for the book price, but if I charge $19.99, I can make more money. It's like, oh my gosh, you're so short-sighted. Let's make it even cheaper so it can get out to more people. Then let's make more people fall in love with you so they want to do business with you so you can make money on your business, not on the price of a book. Okay, so I do lots of calls to action in the book itself. I love, putting in your author page and like your bio, but then also promote your other products in your book. I do that all the time with my authors. There's all kinds of ways we're trying to engage the reader to actually take another step with you, and putting examples and stories, successful customer stories throughout your books. They're like, wow, I want to be one of those people, right? So there's lots of ways to use the book to make money and to market yourself that isn't about making money with the book, number one. But getting the book in people's hands, this is the key. So it's really about your other relationships, whether you joint venture with other people to get your book out there. Speaking is a great way to get your message out there so they get a taste of who you are. But then if they want more, then they've got your book that they can go to. So I love either giving my book with talks that I do, and I love to do as much speaking as possible, giving my book, or actually many places that I'll speak will want to buy the book for the attendees, or they'll let me sell it at the back of the room. I don't like selling my book. I love giving it away because, like I say, I get much more when I give it than what I get for that, like with that little transaction there.
Definitely. And I'm thinking not just for the person who's trying to run their business, but say that you're like the corporate CEO, right? If you had a book that you could give to your employees, like they would be able to connect with you when they might not have the opportunity to ever actually see you. And you can pass on that vision, that message to all of your employees. And it's not about making money. It's about getting them all on board with you to hear that message from you. And then you can turn that, right, into profit. Why? Because they want to be with you. They want to help you on that mission. They're with you to the end. We're going to get it done because we know who you are, and you've told us that story.
Cody, you bring up such an important point that I'm glad we're getting to, is there's many different kinds of books that you can produce, okay, and that you can publish. It doesn't have to be a chapter book. Okay, it doesn't have to be, introduction, chapter 1, chapter 2, all of that. Okay, it literally could be a workbook. In fact, the scenario that you just described with a business owner or the CEO of a company could literally have an introduction to the company book that you can publish. Okay, that goes through the history, that goes through the values of the company, that goes through his, or her own story. All these things that can really connect the person with the culture that you're trying to provide for your business. And it could even be a workbook, or it could be a journal, or it's like your first 30 days on the job, or what it means to be, a team member, or it could be a book about leadership, but it's all, using examples from your business. I mean, there's so many different things and different kinds of books you can write, not just a chapter book. It could be a workbook. It could be a journal. It could be a picture book. It could be a book of quotes. It could be, the 10 commandments of working here or whatever, right? It could be whatever, creativity. And that's why because I promise people can get a book done in less than 60 days. They can be a bestseller within 60 days. And one of the fastest ways to get a book out is to use content that you already have. So if you have an employee handbook already, and you want to just make it more creative and more, where you're more connected with the person, so they're writing in it, and you turn it into something else besides just this like legal document thing. You can literally, creativity, use it and figure out another way that you could be presenting that same material that you've already got, but package it so you can actually publish it into a book.
Absolutely. And just another thing that I'm thinking of, because I've never thought of like a workbook before, but something that's really cool that you could do with a workbook or a journal too, is if you tell that story and then you give them the ability to tell their story within it, right? You're getting their buy-in and their allowance to be vulnerable and be imperfect as they're joining the company. And so they know this is a safe place. They know that, hey, even even the CEO has problems, right?
Yeah.
And like he's open and he's told us all of these to all of us, right? And now I also have the ability to put it down here, and I don't even necessarily have to share it with everybody, but I have the ability to be open about it within this workbook or this journal.
And have the awareness.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, that's brilliant. You got to do that book.
Oh, well. Well, it's not about me doing that book, but it's about the person who's running a 500-person organization, or even like a 5-person organization, being able to bring that book to their people. Like, how cool is that you could go into an organization and the person leading it is like, hey guys, like here's where we're going to, and these are all the places where I've messed up. And I'm not expecting you to be perfect, because guess what? Look here, I'm not perfect. I've got it all right here for you.
I'll tell you a book that I'm putting together right now. It actually is a communications course that I teach my employees. Okay. And, but I was just using it like internally for my martial arts school. Okay. So all of our instructors and everything, they need to learn this set of 10 communication tools. So I use it with them, and it all, applies for, you as an instructor, staff member, team member of the dojo. But what I realized is it was all the same principles that would help any business or any family or actually anyone that wanted to be able to communicate better. So now I'm turning that, internal document and training into a book, because that I'm going to be able to share with with anybody who's interested in upping their communication game.
That's awesome. And like me thinking in my head right now, there's so much fun that you could play around with that marketing, right? Mm-hmm. Because you originally told it for the martial arts school.
Yes.
But now you can even market the book as like communication understanding for businesses from a martial arts expert.
There you
right?
go.
One of my instructors in college, he unfortunately passed away from cancer. But it was Sensei Rob's dojo on communication. And that was one of the classes he would teach every single year. And he would get up in front of the class dressed up in a gi and the belt and everything. And he's teaching, this is the communication technique for this. And it was a totally goofy thing. But like even to this day, the stuff that he taught me sticks with me.
Yeah. When you present it in a creative format. No, I love that. I have an author whose book's going up, being released tomorrow on pre-order, and it's going to become a bestseller. And it's called A Black Belt in Parenting. And same kind of idea, like using the techniques that he's learned on the mat with children, how to use them at home, how parents can use those same techniques to get similar discipline and results from their kids at home. Yeah,
that's awesome, because there's oh my goodness, within the martial arts world, you can get me talking about martial arts all day.
We're gonna have to do that. We're gonna have to actually
that would be so
get
much
together
fun.
And catch up on that. That would be fun.
One of the things that you see a lot is that parents will bring their kids to get discipline training because they can't figure out how to do it at home. And they want to get that energy out and learn, what does discipline take? And that's actually part of what made my mother and I really good instructors. And we had a lot of parents who would purposely put their kids in our class for that kind of training. It's so relevant and so needed, because within the world of parenting leadership, there's a lot of challenges too. It's not just business it's not just business, it's in families too.
Yeah. Well, like they say, when you go for dog training, I don't know if you've ever taken a dog for dog training, they go, well, I know you've come to learn how to train your dog, but really it's you that needs training.
Oh my goodness.
Your dog is perfect. You need some work.
Oh, that's funny. I grew up with dogs, and my fiance's family recently got a dog. And when I go over to their house, I can get the dog to do whatever I want the dog to do. But the rest of the family doesn't have that ability. Certain family members do, but most of them don't. Why? Because they haven't trained themselves. Oh my goodness. That's
leadership,
fantastic.
Right?
Exactly.
That's personal leadership.
Exactly. All about leadership. So, Melody, if people are looking to get a hold of you, what are the best ways they can go about getting to you?
Well, I think I made a couple of promises I want to fulfill.
Yeah, I would appreciate that. That's tremendously amazing, and thank you for making those offers.
No problem. Okay, so first, I want to make sure everybody gets one of my books. Okay, it's a foundational book for me, and you can get that free book It's called The Clean Food Diet. And it is actually about how to eat clean. I believe that if you eat the right foods, then that will help your brain, it will help your energy, it'll help your emotions, it'll take care of you. And that link we're actually putting in the chat box. It is mastermel.com. My website is mastermel.com. mastermel.com/free book. Okay, if you go there, you'll get a free copy of that book, and there's tons of recipes, and it's just about eating real food. So I don't believe in dieting, but I do believe in self-care. And so what you put in is really what you're going to get out. So why not put in some nice, good, nutritious food? And a lot of people don't know what that is, so that's what that book is about. So
Definitely.
foundation of being a good leader.
I'm actually going through a certification right now. And like last week, we were talking about this subject as a part of that certification.
Well, it's a certification in what?
It's a coaching certification with an organization called Optimize. So Brian Johnson's the leader of Optimize. He's phenomenal. But all his work is about how do you create an optimal life? And one of the big things we talk about a lot is, what are you putting in your body? So your book is extremely important, and it's something that people definitely need to be reading. Regardless of what you do for work, regardless of what situation you're in.
Yeah. That's why I chose that book, because I think that it is foundational. So you got to take care of yourself so that you can help care for others. All right. And so that's one thing I promised. So make sure you download that free book. And then also I mentioned that I have an event coming up. Would love to give your listeners a free ticket to that if they want to come to Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara is a beautiful place in California.
Well, California is a beautiful place in general.
Right. Yes. So I know not everybody has the freedom to just pick up and go, but for those of you who want to make that happen, I would love for you to be my guest. So that link is Sweet Leverage. So Sweet is spelled S-U-I-T-E, leverage, Sweet Leverage, because we're going to create a suite of products from your message. sweetleverage.com/exclusive-offer. And then that will be for a free ticket. If you don't put the exclusive-offer, then you'll be paying for a ticket. So don't do that. Get that free ticket to that event. And that's August 2nd through the 4th. 3 days of working on your business, working on your message. We get clear about your message first, then creating a suite of products using content that you already have to create a suite of products so that you have something to sell, because that's actually what makes a business. I'm always surprised when I ask people, they want to talk about their business. Great. And I say, how do you make money? And they're like, well, I do a little this, a little that. And it's like, no, products. You gotta have products. So we gotta take what's up here and make it tangible, turn it into something that you can sell. So that's what we do. And so it's a workshop. We're actually, I'm not up in front like talking all the time. It's like we are workshopping it and making sure that you walk out with a suite of products.
It's time to get your hands dirty.
Time to get in. That's leadership, baby. It's dirty.
Absolutely. Awesome. And then if there's any other ways that people want to be getting a hold of you, what are the best ways for that?
Yeah. So you can email me is a great way. If you have any questions about anything that we talked about today with books or leadership or martial arts, taking care of yourself, or maybe you have a question from the book, that's totally up to you. I love to hear from you. I'll just give you my email address, and it's Mel, M-E-L, @mastermel.com. And I'd love to hear from you.
That's absolutely phenomenal. And this has been such a great conversation, Melody. And one, I love that you're a martial arts enthusiast, just like myself. You're probably much better than me, but it's always wonderful to meet a kindred spirit in the martial arts world. Absolutely phenomenal. Talking about imperfection and how we're all imperfect. Even the studio we're in for the day may be imperfect in some situations.
For sure.
And things just are completely out of our control sometime. And how do you become still an elite leader even though there are all these imperfections that definitely are a part of our lives? It's going to be there whether you want it to be or not, and how that actually can be extremely powerful because you're imperfect. And
it's your unique selling feature, actually.
Exactly. And then on top of that, how do you make your story heard in a way that's just extremely beneficial so that people want to hear it and that they actually connect? That's such a powerful thing. And also, we talked about some very interesting ways you can go about doing that with books.
Bigger impact. Let's make a bigger impact. And that's one, that was the promise of this talk, is that you would learn a way to make a bigger impact, even though you're imperfect. And one is to share your imperfection with others.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Melody, if you could leave everybody with one thing as a takeaway, what would you leave with? What would you leave with them?
You are your message. You are your story. And is this the story that you want to be telling?
Love it. Absolutely love it. And make sure that you are living the story that you want to be told, because it's so important. People need to hear it. You have the ability to be legendary in this world if you want to be, but it's up to you to make sure that you tell the story that shows people that you're legendary. It's up to you to get that message out into the world so they can connect with you. And that's so needed in the world right now. There's just a lack of legendary leaders in the world right now. And we need to hear more voices of people who are living up to that standard, that are living up to become legendary leaders. And it starts right here, right now, in the essence of elite leadership. You need to understand what that essence is. You need to understand your strengths and your weaknesses and your imperfections. So, absolutely, this has been phenomenal. Another phenomenal session in the Legendary Leadership Summit.